Andrews. Emma is the Director of Marketing with Nextleaf Solutions Limited. Nextleaf obviously trades on the Canadian Securities Exchange, and the company develops patented technology for distilling and extracting THC and CBD for the wholesale market. Emma, thank you so much for your time. How are you?
Really appreciate it. Thanks, Anil. I'm doing well.
Talk to our viewers about Nextleaf Solutions. What is the company's history and vision?
We are Canada's most innovative processor by way and validated by the breadth of portfolio of patents that we have. Some of them are for the process of producing distillate. Our refinement, extraction, and purification goes above and beyond what other processors are doing. And this is not only in terms of efficiency, but also the quality and purity that we're able to achieve as an output. That was our first patent issued, was on the actual process to produce our distillate. And that's probably one that we are most proud of because it's really positioned us as a competitor, a strong competitor in the processing niche, able to produce a really high purity distillate. Not all processes are created equal, and we can get into the nuances a little bit, but it's something that I'm really passionate about, making sure consumers and retailers are aware of what goes on behind the scenes and what that means in terms of our consumption.
Exactly. So here we are talking about the culture of consumption. And, it might seem a little out of the box having a company like Nextleaf on here at first thought, because it's like, well, they don't have any edibles, they don't have any, vapes or anything like that. But you guys and your technology is so important to the players that are creating these products. When the most three common ways of consuming cannabis, obviously inhaling, ingestion, topicals, and all three of those common ways of ingesting it require some sort of an extract that you guys come into play with.
Totally.
Well, I kind of wanted to get into that next. Obviously, rapid emulsion technology. I want you to talk to our listeners and viewers about RET, rapid emulsion technology. What is it? Because a lot of people might not fully understand it. And how does that play a part in all of these patents that the company has been able to put together? And give us some of the pros, the good and the bad.
Absolutely. So I'll step back one level before we create our emulsified cannabinoids, which is the correct way, if you will, of saying water soluble. So just to put that to bed, it's not water soluble. It's not an accurate term within the realm of cannabinoid ingredients. So an emulsified cannabinoid is what truly disperses properly into water, hence why we've called it rapid emulsion technology. Prior to creating that molecule, you need distillate. So distillate is the primary output of our extraction process. Distillate can be put into products themselves like vapes or bottled oils, but distillate can also be transformed into an emulsified molecule. And that's what our rapid technology does, is allows that molecule, oil, to be perfectly dispersed into water.
Interesting. And then so that would that affects then the dosage and all that stuff. Is that correct?
The dosage, the consumption experience, but most notably the onset time. So if you were to drink distillate in water, which wouldn't be a desirable consumption experience, oil does not go into water very easily unless there's some heating that you might do or cook with it as an example, but it's not as approachable to the end consumer. You definitely want that rapid onset time. You want that homogeneity when you put it into a beverage as an example. So having it in this emulsified molecule makes it much easier to work with from a product development standpoint. You can use this molecule in a variety of formulations. From ready to drinks to concentrates as an example, and even in topicals. So it's easier to work with. It is easier to validate stability as well. This is a key for Health Canada in improving your formulations.
Yep.
It's a much smaller microscopic amount of the droplet.
Interesting. And is there, what I wanted to say is it obviously is a lot more complicated and a lot more procedures involved than you and your friends getting together and trying to cook with cannabis at home.
I love it. You could with distillate. It's not as easy to disperse in a recipe though. So if you think about when you add things like sugar even is easily dissolved into the liquids when you add it in a recipe. Distillate, not so much. So I believe that we're going to start seeing more desire for whether it's powders or concentrates that the consumer can DIY with at home. but convenience is king. So I think a lot of consumers really are going to still desire ready to drink options if it's a beverage category offering, or edibles that have that rapid onset, because they're really looking for quick feedback, right? They really want to know that it's working, that it takes effect. You're not taking cannabis to wait for 2 hours. You want to take cannabis and enjoy your experience as quickly as possible.
Yeah. So obviously, ingredient quality is very important when it comes to consumption, as you allude to. So how does Next Leaf ultimately define quality?
This is a really interesting one. And with a number of my colleagues in the industry, we talk about this avidly, if not weekly, is how do we define quality? Because it's not like the natural products industry, as an example, where you see every package with icons about non-GMO and organic and fair trade and all of these parameters that might aid your product choice based on your own quality standards that you're looking for. Yeah. In this industry, there's kind of no third-party verification just yet that's widespread. So it is up to each individual processor or ingredient provider to help define that. For us, one of the big ones is efficacy, both in terms of how it performs in the formulation, but then also for the end consumer. And then another definition of quality is the purity. So our extraction technology is capable of getting up to 95% purity in our distillate. And as an example, this is produced through ethanol-based extraction. Other forms of extraction technology, such as CO2, may only get to 60, 70, maybe at most 80% purity. So depending on what formulation you're doing, that purity is a really big indicator of quality.
Even if it's at that minimum 10%, like you said, it would, it would make a huge difference when it comes to the end product, I would assume.
Absolutely. If you are familiar with vape cartridges, you'll often notice different coloration in the input in the vape cartridges. So if it's a darker color, as an example, there tends to be more impurities in that cartridge because it's a lower percent purity of cannabis. And the remainder is things like chlorophyll, which can tint the color of the vape cartridge. So at face value, that can be an easy way to determine purity or potency, but also in terms of the quality of the extraction process.
And that comes back to how important it is in that education process to the bud tenders and the retailers that are then passing it over to the consumers. Because as a consumer, you wouldn't really know that stuff unless you are really involved and want to do your own research and homework on the products you're consuming.
Totally.
Now, for my second part, might be a little bit of a personal opinion from you, but obviously we're here talking about cannabis. We're here talking about the corporate angle of it, and we're here talking about culture, which is right up there when it comes to cannabis. So what does cannabis and corporate and culture mean to you? What are the crossroads there?
I think for me, and I'll give a little bit of a personal anecdote in the midst of answering this. I'm a mom, I'm an athlete. So for me, it's really important to destigmatize cannabis. But the accessibility and the variety of products that we have available, I think, allows a wider breadth of consumer to come into the category. I deeply believe that there's a form of cannabis that is right for everyone, and it's not going to be flower for everyone. So as much as, I'm a bit of a purist for the plant because I have a bit of a green thumb. I love gardening. I love the green stuff, but the derivative products made with extracted cannabinoids are going to be much more accessible on a widespread basis. And I'm really interested to watch the shift from, it's still happening, from legacy into legit, as we say, or into the legal market. And a big part of that is driven by price compression. So we see a lot more value priced product appearing in the market now to help that consumer really make the legal choice much easier.